there is something happening where kids are sort of feeling less competent, a little bit more like somebody else is always telling them what to do. Guess why? Yeah, because somebody's always telling them what to do. So if your question is, how did we get here, or how does that make kids anxious? Everybody's anxious when they are micromanaged. And we are micromanaging kids' lives.
All right. I'm Laura Forcum, president of the Independence Center and a former marketing professor.
I'm Lauren Hall, professor of political science and author of the Substack, The Radical Moderate's Guide to Life.
This is We Made This Political, a podcast about making politics more about flourishing and less about power.
We talk about living together in families, communities, and as citizens, drawing from our backgrounds in psychology and political science, and as parents. We are absolutely thrilled today to be joined by Lenore.
Skenazy rhymes with crazy. Nobody gets it.
I keep
That's okay.
saying A wrong. That's what. Well, I think it's because I've
Everybody
been saying
does.
your name in my head for 20 years or something.
Yeah.
So anyway, I know Laura and I are both absolutely thrilled to have you here, and I'll have Laura do a more detailed bio, and then we'll jump right in.
Okay.
Great. Well, welcome, Lenore. Lenore is a journalist, author, and speaker best known for helping launch the Free Range Kids movement after her 2008 column on letting her 9-year-old child ride the subway alone stirred up quite a controversy.
Yeah.
She is a co-founder and president of Let Grow, which is a nonprofit that advocates for childhood independence and resilience. So thank you so much for being with us today, Lenore.
Oh, that was short and sweet. I love it.
So I'll just say, because I think Laura and I have been going back and forth about the sort of weirdness of one of our heroes being on the podcast.
I thought the
Good
weirdness
weird.
of me. I was like, yeah, I know, I'm a weirdo.
No.
What can I say? Right.
Laura and I both have kids around the same age. My oldest is 13, so I feel like I had my first kid sort of right as the sort of parenting wars were. I mean, I guess the parenting wars have been going on for a long time, but but I do know that just for me, at least, I've really appreciated the sort of dose of reason that you brought, like sort of common sense to the conversations, particularly around, just these sort of wild fears that parents had that were really changing the way that people think about parenting and think about risk. And so to me, it was really crucial that people like you and more recently Emily Oster have been in the space, just trying to sort of provide some data, some sanity. And to me, at least, I think it was absolutely crucial for giving me space to enjoy parenting. I think that was one of the really sort of serious concerns that I have with modern overparenting, is that we've lost sight of what parenting should be about, which is enjoying spending time with our kids.
And also enjoying not spending time with our kids.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That makes the time with the kids more enjoyable if you have some time separate from them. Yeah.
Yeah, there were moments when my kids were little that I was able to sort of channel you in nice hotels and just really enjoy, if I'm at a conference, wow, I can go to the bathroom by myself. Let's just enjoy this moment and not feel any guilt about it, right? They will be fine.
No.
They'll be fine. So I'll kick things off, and then we'll just go through this. This is really informal, and we would love to hear sort of your general thoughts on the state of the world.
Everything's fine.
Yeah, everything's fine. So I've been a college professor now for close to 20 years, and I think everyone has seen the sort of skyrocketing anxiety that we see in our students. And there's a lot of explanations for that. I think Jonathan Haidt's work has been great on smartphones. But to me, at least, I think there seems to be a broader, and I say this without actually data, but to me, I think another explanation is is the free range kids explanation, which is when we were growing up, I think we were forced to contend with a lot of unknown situations. We were forced to navigate things at younger ages. And a lot of my students simply have not had to navigate hard conversations. They've not had to they haven't had to have conversations with adults. I mean, we have people emailing the dean about really minor grade disputes because they don't, actually parents emailing the dean. So there's just this whole like change in sort of how students and young people generally experience navigating the world. And so I guess my beginning question is, what do you think is driving what appears to be at least a growing trend in anxiety among young people?
Oh, that's a minor call. Right. First, what do you teach? What are you a professor of?
I'm a political scientist.
Okay.
And I was a marketing professor, so I've seen a lot of what
Oh.
Lauren saw or
Oh, wow.
sees. So we have this similar observation of students who are just very uncomfortable with uncertainty. And, we're curious about like, when did parents start overreaching and crowding out kids? Because what they're lacking, I think, in both of our observations is like a sense of agency and confidence that they can handle things.
I was at Nickelodeon. Was it this week? I can't remember where I've been. I go to a lot of different people and places. But I think it was this week, talking to executives there about how agency is what they want to be showing kids. Because and by the time you have a multinational corporation worried about that, it's sort of not our imagination. There is something happening where kids are sort of feeling less competent, a little bit more like somebody else is always telling them what to do. Guess why? Yeah, because somebody's always telling them what to do. So if your question is, how did we get here, or how does that make kids anxious? Everybody's anxious when they are micromanaged. And we are micromanaging kids' lives. I don't even blame parents, because it's a culture that insists on doing that. First of all, in the schools with all the tests and the, down to the second, what teachers are allowed to teach and how they teach it, and then 3 minutes for reflection to the left and the right of you, and then we're all going to have a lively conversation. That's not how life works. But there's the idea of control. Control is what I'm going to keep referring back to. There's somehow the idea that if we can control exactly what goes on in the classroom, which means turning the teachers into robots, which means turning the kids into robots, then everything will turn out fine, which is not happening. But then there's also this idea that parents have been sort of had shoved down their throats, which is that they can control for every variable in their kids' lives, and then the gradual growth of technology that allows them to do that, starting out with a sonogram. Oh, your kid is going to be 8.2 pounds and it's a girl, and then they come out, and then there's these devices, whether it's a monitor that sweeps the room as if it's looking for invaders or terrorists, and then there's other monitors that you can put on your kid that tell you the child's blood pressure and blood oxygen level and movement level, and those are crucial in the NICU, right? If you actually have a fragile child, you need that information. But we are treating all children. This is the main problem. We're treating all children as if they are fragile and need early intervention for everything, to the point where they are taught everything as if nothing kicks in automatically. And weirdly, in doing that, we've so distorted childhood that we're at the point where we think they need lessons in how to be, how to breathe deeply when you feel bad and think of a happy, safe space. And it's like, I think kids would do that normally without us teaching them this if they had a more normal childhood. And I know that childhood changes, different eras, different places, different parents. But until very recently, if you're going to talk macro, until really recently, there was no school, right? Until like the last 150 or 200 years, there was certainly not this idea that kids would need to be put in a classroom and educated. And I actually believe that too. I think kids need an education. But what's different now is that we've gotten so used to thinking of kids learning at school that we think when kids aren't in school and don't have an adult teaching them, they're not learning. And so we've sort of discounted any time that they might spend playing, goofing off, looking at the clouds, having an argument, learning how to cross the street, riding their bikes, all that stuff actually is educational, but it doesn't look educational because it's not literally stamped with the notary. This is educational. And then the reason I feel sorry for parents in two ways is, first of all, we've been told that that's the model for us to emulate, that we should be like teachers, because teachers teach students if you want your kid to get ahead. And it's in my other room, but I keep copies of Parents Magazine around, and now the articles that they publish online, because they don't even have a hard copy anymore. And there's one that I always like to read aloud about how to supercharge every story time.
Oh my gosh.
What? And it's by a literacy specialist. What? And so there's your idea that, you need an expert because maybe your child is falling behind on early intervention. And then the advice that she gives is, I'd say, the worst advice in the world, which is that, when you sit down with your kid, they're going to look at the pictures, but you have to point them back to the text and point out that there's a period at the end of every sentence, and that the title is the name of the book, and this is the author. Point to the white space around the words, and then show how many words there are in the title, which to me is like, I like to read a good 2-word title. I like Anna Karenina, The Brothers Karamazov, that's 3, nah, A Gentleman in Moscow, 4, forget it, so, which is I'm reading now, which I just love. So suddenly we have been told that unless we are with our kids all the time, literally teaching them like a really bad, boring teacher in a really bad, boring school, our kids are going to fall behind. And if they're not falling behind, then they're in danger another way if you're not with them. And this is when I really feel for parents, because my bugaboo for the past month is this mom who wrote to me, whose kid is 7, can't remember, first grade I think, who can't get off the bus when when he gets to the bus stop at the end of the school day unless she's there to walk him home. And she's like, well, he walked home last year. What's going on? Oh, this is our new rule. It's like, well, we know he can walk home because he walked home last year. Same school, same bus, same house. And they're like, no, we cannot make an exception. It's too dangerous. She said, it's 4 houses. 4 houses down, and he's 7. And they said, we understand your desire for his independence or whatever, but no. It just came down to no. And they said, there's too much that could happen, too much liability. And so what we're talking about is fake safety. It's sort of like when the TSA, I'm so mad still, it's been 10 years, I should get over it. They took away my peanut butter. Why? Because it's liquid. I'm like, it's not liquid. I'm holding it upside down. Nothing is coming out. This is not a liquid. No, it's, away went my peanut butter. And we all know that it wasn't dangerous. It didn't make anyone safer. And this was just a meaningless precaution that was a precaution against somebody taking peanut butter, not somebody taking a bomb. Right? I could stick my finger in it and eat some of the peanut butter, and it, either I would die from whatever's in a bomb, or it's peanut butter, or die from peanut allergies. Anyways, the point is that we parents are not allowed to raise our children in a way that is safe enough, far safe enough, but not 100.000% safe, because nothing is 100.000% safe, including living here, where you could fall down the stairs, where you could, trip on the, I'm worried about tripping on the rug. It's always going like this, and I never can figure out how to totally flatten it out. Or you could choke on, a pen cap. So the idea that we can and must control every single danger and every single moment of our kids' lives so that they are not in danger and so that they get ahead is what's driving parents crazy, and it's driving kids crazy. Parents get anxious, kids get anxious. Kids are anxious, parents get anxious. It's this cycle.
It's also, one of the things that Laura and I talk about a lot is the sort of the neglect of trade-offs, kind of broadly speaking. So it's not just anxiety, right? There was a great New York Times article yesterday. I do a lot of work on healthcare policy and birth, and there was an article yesterday about the point that you made, which is we actually know that continuous fetal monitoring, or just fetal monitoring in general during labor, increases the risk of C-section, and it actually is not associated with better outcomes. And yet everyone gets strapped onto, like, you get strapped up, and they it turns out that the reason they do that is actually not because they think it's safer, but because it's used in lawsuits. So you have to have these fetal monitoring strips.
Wait, it's
So,
used in lawsuits against the hospital, so the hospital
Yeah.
has to say, "Look, we
it's
were
used
checking and
in
we
both.
did
So
everything."
the hospital uses, yes. So it's actually ironic. One commenter basically said, it's weird that the hospitals continue using it because it's used against them. But because they have this data, the feeling is, any kind of potential issue is a cause
Addressed immediately.
is addressed immediately, even though every single labor is going to have situations where the baby's heart rate goes a little bit wacky. I mean, it's a very stressful situation. You're being squeezed through a
I
period.
remember, yeah.
And but I think there's lots of other examples where I think we are really underestimating other risks. And so my colleague Steve Horowitz, who wrote on the family, he talks about corner solution parenting, where we've basically tried to minimize one particular risk, like the risk of abductions, so much that we've then opened ourselves to all these other risks, but we're just not aware of them, right? So it's like the anxiety, it's the loss of independence, it's the inability to make decisions. I mean, my students, if it's not on the syllabus, they can't figure out how to handle it.
That's really interesting.
And so I think all of these things compound in really kinds of pernicious ways. And then parents are just stuck feeling, and then I think that the issue I struggle with even more is that then you get hemmed in by these rules, like that you can't walk to school rule, or you can't be dropped off and so we're actually now creating even more rigid structures around parenting, because this misunderstood sort of understanding of risk has then become part of the criminal law in some areas.
So that's right. So I have to jump in and talk about Select Grow has helped pass these what we call reasonable childhood independence laws. And they're great. They're bipartisan. They've been passed in 11 states so far. And right now we are overwhelmed by working in another 7 states that have come to us. And, sometimes we hear about them after the law has been passed. And the law is simply this. It states that neglect is when you put your kid in obvious and serious danger, not anytime you take your eyes off them. And the reason that has such, wild support and bipartisan support, in most states it is, whatever it is, introduced by a Democrat and Republican. And in 5 of the states it passed unanimously, including Virginia, where the Democrats and Republicans usually have some discussions when it comes to, family rulings. And it really is great for, a mom like me who just wanted to free range my kids, right? But it's also great if you're living in poverty. If you're a mom who's working 2 jobs and your kid has to come home with a latchkey because you can't pay for the after-school care and you don't think they need a babysitter now because they're 8, 9, 10, that's not neglect. And so if somebody calls and said, I saw, I saw Laura's kid, coming home and nobody else was home, it's like, well, thank you very much, and this way Child Protective Services is not mandated to go and, check out every instance, like, oh, there were kids playing outside. I was just, where was I hearing it? Oh, yesterday, somebody sent us the testimony from Ohio where the law has been proposed. And the lawmaker who was talking about it talked about one of the stories that we've publicized of a mom in Virginia who had, the cops or Child Protective Services called on her 4 times for letting her kids play outside. Why are they outside? Why is not their mother there? And then Child Protective Services came and said, well, you have to be with them all the time. And she's like, no, I don't. So
that's crazy.
Really, you're talking about how, sort of the popular misperceptions of danger leach their way into law. And I'm talking about how we fight back. And one of the ways is with our reasonable childhood independence laws. But on a grander scale, we really have to make it easy and normal again for parents to not spend every single second with their kids, or for kids to be unsupervised. Doesn't have to be by a parent, by anyone, by a coach, a teacher, just by the bus driver. They're allowed to leave the bus and walk home. Wow, I was in Connecticut on Wednesday night giving a talk, and they told me that in the morning when they pick, the bus stops at everybody's driveway, but that the parent has to be at the bottom of the driveway to give the kid to the bus, and vice versa at the end of the day. And it's like, well, I guess maybe all moms should just quit their jobs. Is that it? Well, I'll just right. I was going to be a ballerina, but now I'm going to stand at the end of the block. So the the statistics about, who wants to have a baby these days, we know it's going down, but what was amazing to me, and I can't remember if it's 10 or 12% difference, but way fewer women want to have, children now than men. And it's like, yeah, if you have to stand at the end of your at the end of your driveway in the middle of a freezing winter in Connecticut because you can't wave from the window, or your kid can't come home to an empty house. Well, it's like signing up for, a super demanding, constantly judged and threatened job.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing to me too, like how many of these things sort of get performed as it being in the interest of kids and kids' safety, but really I think are a pretense for just subjecting women to these double binds that they can't win, right? Like if you're not there every minute with your child taking notes on what the literacy specialist says about how to do bedtime, you're not doing it well enough. And of course, when you don't have energy, and of course, when that leaves you no energy for exercise or a career, right? Or like, other pursuits that you might find enjoyable, right? Then like you're not contributing, you're not pulling your weight. And it's just, it's so pernicious. I feel like it's like a lot of women, it's not just men doing this, right? Like a lot of women are enlisted in this larger project of, I don't know what we're doing to parents. Like, I don't know what our long-term objective is in viewing parenting this way. But yeah, it makes it absolutely poisonous. So I see why people don't want to do it.
And I think I got this statistic off your website, Lenore. Maybe it was something related. But I mean, to go back to your point about low-income women, right? Low-income women and women of color, right? So for, I'm a middle-class, suburban mom, so I can sort of put up with like the, it's very inconvenient and very anxiety producing, but I can still sort of have kids and it works out, right? But I think that there's a real, like, I do like to point out to people how high the stakes are for other families, right? And so when you think about, the statistics that came to mind was something like, when people think about why CPS intervenes and why people get their kids taken away from them, I think most people think, oh, you have to be really bad to have that happen, right? You have to be abusing your kids. And yet something like 80% or something of the people who had their children removed or people who are investigated and then have their children removed by CPS, have them removed for neglect. And neglect is this completely undefined term, right? We are not talking about people who are actually abusing their kids. Now, some cases of neglect are, of course, extreme, right? But when you actually dig into the data, those are not the majority of neglect cases. And so it's not just that this is causing anxiety. It's not just that it's bad for parenting and it's bad for women. It has really outsized effects. Like it has deeply regressive effects on the women who are working 2 shifts to feed their family, who are trying their hardest to sort of live a good life and pass all of their hard work onto their kids, right? They are the ones who are being targeted. And so I've definitely been in situations where I had to make that choice of, do I leave my kid in the car to run into this gas station, and my fear was never that someone was going to abduct them. My fear is that someone's going to call the cops and I'm going to have to deal with cops on an afternoon, but for other women, that's like an existential threat, right? Like that if you are involved in a CPS case and you are going through divorce or you're low income, right? Or you're a woman of color in the city, like I look at those women and I just have such a deep sense of both responsibility, but also just, I'm so sad for them and what we've done to them, right? We've just made life so much more difficult than it already is for people who are already struggling with a range of other issues, Right. So I don't know if you have anything, I mean, I just think the regressive effect piece.
Right. I don't know the statistics that you quoted, that 80% of the kids who are taken away from their parents are taken for neglect cases versus abuse. I really don't know that, but I can tell you that 37% of all kids will be the subject of a Child Protective Services hotline call or call to them at some point in their childhood, which is already crazy, like that 1/3 of the kids in America are neglected. But if you're Black, it's 53%.
Yeah.
53% more likely than not that the government will get a call that says your parents are not doing it right. And then, I mean, the good news, bad news. The bad news is that any kind of interview, interrogation, investigation is so terrifying, right? It in itself is traumatic, right? And so even though the vast majority of these cases are screened out in the end, right? I'd say like about 8 million kids get these calls every year, and about 7 million, it's nothing. But still, I mean, that's also terrible. That means we're way, way, way over-reporting. But even though it ends up, it's not no harm, no foul, right?
Yes.
You've been through this thing where the government has come and looked in your cabinets and opened your refrigerator and interrogated your children without you in the room. And, you know, you just gotta hope that you get to keep them. So that's why I have to say the Reasonable Childhood Independence Law is good. It just says you automatically can't call neglect simply taking your eyes off your kids. If you know your kids and you think they're ready for something, unless you're putting them in obvious and serious danger, and that has to be like real danger, not, oh my God, they were in the car for 3 minutes, anything could happen. That's not real danger. That's called waiting in the car for 3 minutes. Then, you know, then it's not neglect. Although I have to say the car part often gets stricken from our law because people do believe that a few seconds in a car and nobody lives. And I always think, like, what happens when you're in a car and you're waiting for like the freight train to pass? You know? They're in a stopped car with the windows up for 3 minutes. You know, then what? But people are really crazed about that. Some states do keep that part of the law in and said, look, at staying in the car for when it's not boiling hot or freezing cold. That's, for a reasonable amount of time, which I would say is whatever you spent in the car when your mom was going into the gas station or the dry cleaner.
Right. I mean, what strikes me is that, like, this larger idea of, like, we don't feel safe gets translated into what can we do to address those feelings of unsafety in a way that's really counterproductive. Because,
and also we should feel pretty safe, right? We're not living in the end times. Crime was going up, 70s, 80s, 90s, peaked in 93, came down, up a little during COVID, down again. And it's true. It is not perfectly safe in America. Tell me a place where it's perfectly safe, besides probably Canada. But really, what's changed is this idea that nothing is good enough. And like we were talking about this corner, what is it? Corner safety?
Corner solution parenting.
Corner solution parenting. It's like, you're right. Some kids will get hurt crossing the street, but some kids will get hurt falling down the stairs or stepping into the bathtub. And we are just pretending that there is a way to get to 100% safety, and that 99.8% safety is crazy dangerous. And it's like, you gotta look a little bit historically and say, look at the amazing times we're living in. No diphtheria, no polio, no famine, right? Laws protecting us, a pretty working state. So you gotta be grateful as opposed to terrified. But we have somehow a culture that turns everything into something scary and bad that you should be trying to control from afar. And then parents are getting all this data, like you were talking about, like even the data you were talking about with the fetal monitor. It's like you get all this information, something is always going to be a little imperfect, and then we take these drastic steps to address it without thinking about that they might be worse than the problem, and also that the problem was fleeting, and also that everybody has always dealt with this problem and it's not a big deal. And so what's driving me lately crazy is the stream of data now that parents get from their phones. Like daycare centers will send home a million pictures. Oh, he didn't look happy in picture 15. Why not? And how many orange segments the kids ate that day, what time did they pee, with like atomic precision, 9:27 a.m. bathroom break for Sydney. And then you get information from the school on their homework assignments and their grades on the Spanish quiz. And I was just talking to a young woman here yesterday, who's 20, and she said she would hear, her friends in high school, she's like 2 years out of high school, sobbing in the bathroom because they'd gotten a bad grade on a quiz, and they knew the minute they walked in the door their mom or dad was going to wonder, like, why did you not ace that algebra test? So
what it makes me think about is like my analogy is like when you're trying to drive and you're looking at the road right in front of the car, right? Like it's really hard. It's a rough ride. It's stressful, and like that's what we're all doing, right? Like we are.
I mean, you're not getting the bigger picture.
Yeah, we're trying to drive looking at the hood ornament, which doesn't exist anymore, instead of where
are there no
we
hood
going
ornaments
on this road. I don't know.
I think there are hood ornaments. I think they get snapped off in
not
my
like
neighborhood.
There used to be. Yeah. So I mean, we've talked about kind of the legal aspect of some of the work that Let Grow does and the protections that can help parents think differently about the legal implications, right, of getting in trouble for not being there all the time. But I'm wondering, what are the cultural opportunities? It's interesting you were talking to Nickelodeon, like how much of this work is legal and how much of it is like cultural, and what are the other avenues for understanding how to make this different and maybe understanding the causes too?
I'm going to leave the causes to later because I want to get to the solutions right now, because it's a cultural shift that we need. And what do they always say, that laws are like lagging indicators or something like that? Let Grow does not mostly exist to change the laws. We mostly exist to make parents feel empowered enough and confident enough to step back so their kids step up. That's literally, we have two slogans. But one of our slogans is, when adults step back, kids step up. How do you make that happen when nobody knows when they're allowed to step back? And so we're always stepping forward and we're waiting at the bus stop, etc. So I started Free Range Kids like a million years ago, but about almost 10 years ago, Jonathan Haidt, it's Haidt, not hate, everyone thinks it's hate. Jonathan Haidt, who most recently wrote The Anxious Generation, was talking to Dan Schuckman, who you might know used to be the chairman of FIRE, which fights for free speech on campus. And they were worried that kids at college were falling apart. That they, I'm happy there's no stigma to, seeking mental health. But kids were seeking it in ever greater numbers for smaller things, like a mouse in the dorm or an argument with a roommate. And then there was the sort of more, existential problem of kids feeling like whenever they had to read something that they disagreed with or hear a speaker that they disagreed with, rather than feeling uncomfortable, which it might be, they literally felt unsafe. And that was leading to, cancel culture, et cetera, on campus. And Dan and John were saying, well, trying to make kids at age 18, 19, 20 more open-minded, resilient, confident, curious, ready to hear the world and meet the world. Doing it at that, at college age is a late stage intervention. But if you start doing it younger and you have kids have more interactions, frustrations, betrayals, the bad part of childhood and of course the good part of childhood, not trauma, but just the everyday give and take that you don't get when somebody's always intervening on your behalf, wouldn't that make them more resilient, from the get-go up through college and into the workforce and whatever else lies beyond? And so John had been reading Free Range Kids, and he'd met me, and I wish I could remember how. I don't. But he loved the book. He loved me. He said, well, let's talk to Lenore, and let's start a nonprofit with her. And when they came to me, I said, okay, but we also have to bring in Peter Gray, who's so wonderful. You guys are nodding.
I love his work. Yeah.
Oh, that's so great.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, so as you know, Peter Gray is a professor of psychology at Boston College, and he has written about how kids learn when they're engaged. When something is turning them on and they want to make something happen, and it's kind of hard, but it's exciting and interesting. And the way that generally happens in childhood is through play. And play is different from an organized activity. Even though soccer or chess can be fun, that's an adult-run activity. It's sort of like school, but you're just learning something else. But free play, you have to figure out what you want to do and who you want to do it with. And if it's not fun, you can leave. And if rules are bad, you can say, hey, let's try it this way. And in playing, like Mother Nature put the play drive into kids for the same reason like the reproduction drive into us. It's like to keep the species going, because that's how kids learn how to deal with each other and how to, like, sand off the rough edges so kids will play with you, and deal with, like, okay, I can't go first, but that's okay because otherwise I can't play at all, right? And so without, and mixed ages is Peter's other big point that, like, opened my mind, which is that when you have a rainbow of ages, which is the way kids have always played until very recently when everything was regimented, segregated literally by age, then you have the little kids trying to be like the bigger kids, and the bigger kids, there have been studies, I hate to have to quote studies about how important play is, but studies that show that, like, when there's at least a 3-year age gap, the older kids end up more empathic and taking a leadership role. And what's great is that through the years, the older kids go on and then the little kids become the leaders. So everybody has a chance to grow. And so we brought Peter on, and we called our organization Let Grow, because we wanted to make it easy, normal, and legal to give kids back the free play that's been taken out of their lives and replaced by adult-run activities, and the independence that has been taken out of their lives to make life constantly supervised. And the most effective way that we have to bring these back so far, maybe there's another way and we just haven't discovered it yet, is through the schools. And so we have 2 free programs for schools that we highly recommend. And I just heard a great story when I was in that Connecticut school the other day. Anyway, so one of the 2 programs is the Let Grow Play Club, which is a bad name, but we're stuck with it. Bad because play sounds pointless, and it's really what we were just talking about. You're learning the empathy and the leadership and the executive function and the compromise and communication skills. So it should be called that. It should be called the Executive Function, Leadership, Compromise, and Communication Skills Club, right? But instead it's called Play Club, and people think, you don't need that. But you do. So if you keep the school open for mixed age, no phones, free play, with an adult there like a lifeguard, they don't organize the games, they don't solve the arguments, then you have, a near copy of what kids have had throughout all of history, which is an ability to make some fun and friends and do something on their own. And you put out junk. You put out, old cardboard boxes and a suitcase and some, rope and the usual balls and hula hoops and stuff. And I've watched enough of these play clubs to realize it's like, it's like puppies in the dog run. They know what to do, right? They will frolic, right? You don't have to say, puppy, don't forget to run and don't forget to sniff. They'll figure that out. And it's great, and it changes the school climate, and teachers love it because the kids love it, and the kids make new friends. So keeping the schools open for mixed age free play, whether you call it a Let Grow Play Club or not, seems to me like giving kids back the food they've been deprived of, right? It's like this developmental thing that they crave that we haven't given it to them. And when they get it, they can't believe it. I mean, I was just reading, somebody sent me a quote from their play club or from their kid at a play club. And the mom had asked, or the teacher asked, like, what did you like most? And the kid said, I got to play basketball for 90 minutes and no one stopped me.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a desperation for something that is so normal and free that we don't give kids, and we've given them everything else because we want them to be happy and to get ahead. And we've taken out, it's like, well, we've given you all these delicious vitamin pills. It's like, I would like to eat a bagel, or a steak or a piece of broccoli. Can you just please give me that? No, here's some more delicious, expensive vitamins. It's like, no, I just need a meal. So that's one. And the other thing is, even easier, because you don't have to organize anything, is to give kids what we call the Let Grow experience. And that's a homework assignment that either the teachers give the kids or the counselor comes in once a month and gives the kids, which is for them to go home and do something on their own with their parents' permission, but without their parents. And that's the normalizing and making it easy again. The parents don't have a choice. Their kid has to do something on their own. And it could be, climbing a tree, making pancakes, going to the store, riding a bike, going to a friend's house, making dinner. Any of these things change the kids so much because they realize, like, my parents trust me to do this hard thing, and here I am doing it. And then it really changes the parents, because the parents haven't had any opportunity to even see their kid walk home from the bus stop because it's not allowed. But suddenly their kids are doing stuff on their own, and that's the joy of parenting. That's why it looks like such a drag, because if you're doing everything with or for your kid, you are their concierge and they're your cranky, guest. But when they start doing things for themselves and eventually even for you, then it's this symbiotic relationship, and you're so proud that your mind, which has been going the way our minds go these days, which is, I'd like to let her walk to school, but what if something terrible happened? Oh my God, what if there's a van? What if she gets hit by a car? Then I couldn't live with myself. She'd be dead and I'd be dead too. That's the circle that our minds go in, because we've been sort of trained to think that extremely pessimistic way. And only reality can change it. My statistics, my podcasts, nothing changes parents except letting go, and then the pride of seeing that their kid did something on their own. Like when a kid goes from crawling to walking, there's no parent on earth who's not extraordinarily proud.
Yeah, I love that.
As a political scientist, I think a lot about sort of these what we're robbing our kids of. And I think, one of the things that I hear over and over again, when people talk about toxic polarization, is the need to, we need more civic education in schools. This is because we got rid of civics classes. And I'm like, well, maybe actually we got rid of like the playground of self-governance that we used to have, which is that you used to be able to, or you used to have to, right? Figure out problems on your own. You had to learn about reciprocity. You had to understand sort of what rule of law was, because you had to make it up on the fly, right? And if the game, the whatever pickup game of whatever sport wasn't going well, right, you make the decision to pick your ball up and you leave, right? But now everything is so regimented, right? We have coaches and we have referees. And so kids never have to make governance decisions ever by themselves. And I look at this and I'm like, why are we talking about like adding more civics classes to classroons where students
why don't we replace recess with civics class?
Right? Civics class. Yeah, let's get rid of
Don't say that loudly.
Yeah, really.
Play, right? Like we, all this wasting time. But it is like, I mean, I think this is, and this is stuff that Laura talks about a lot in terms of like, humans are really naturally social, and we will create rules for ourselves. We will create systems in which we can cooperate and coordinate, and we instinctively understand things like reciprocity, but we never give kids a chance to actually figure that out. And so by the time they get to college, they have no idea how to handle problems other than appealing to an authority figure. And I think that's absolutely terrifying. When it comes to like sort of the future of liberal democracy, yeah, that's really bad.
I'm just going to take that clip and show it all around the world, because that's exactly, that was the impulse behind founding Let Grow, was the worry that as kids got older, they were turning to the authorities for solutions, because they didn't realize they had the power. It's like Dorothy, it's in your shoes. All you have to do is click them 3 times. It's like, me? I have that power? Yes, you have that power. I have to tell you one cool story, which is that when John was writing The Anxious Generation, I helped on the chapters for schools and for parents. And when I was doing some research about playgrounds and, what's good, one of the people I spoke with said, and always have some of those sandbags for the kids. And do you know why? I mean, sandbags, like heavy sandbags filled with sand.
Yeah.
Why? Because you can't lift it alone.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a great point.
That's great. Yeah.
Right? And that's the whole point of play, right? Is that you're doing something with someone else. Yeah. So, people always think that kids are imitating the adults, but the adults have to grow up, in a democracy, the democracy of the playground. That's boring. That's not fair. That's not fair is what you hear all the time. And then the creativity. This summer I was listening, kids do play where I go in the summer out by themselves. And it was these kids, none of them particularly athletic. I'd say all of them under age 10. There were like 4 of them. And I watched them like they're playing baseball. And it's like, okay, that's first base. And then, like, there's no second base. And then that's third base. It's like, that's their solution, right? They don't have enough kids. Okay, there's no second base. You can't do that in Little League, right?
Right.
And they've come up with this elegant solution.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, I love these solutions. The thing that both of you are saying that this makes me think about is like, we've really mixed up this idea that people can be instructed to do things that are actually like natural processes. So like there is no need to instruct on play. There's no need to instruct on engagement, right? Like engagement is when you have, you're bringing yourself to a thing, right? And like it's exciting, it's enriching, it sucks you in, right? Like that's where you get a flow state.
Oh, I gotta find this.
Nobody has to be told how to do these things. And it reminds me of the conversation we're having about depolarization right now, which is we spend all this time telling people to do things differently, and we don't offer them an opportunity to actually do anything differently, right? Like we have, it's fascinating because it's like this total shift of focus away from the self, right? Like, I don't know. I need an expert to tell me. I need an expert to give me more data, give me more studies, right? And so it's not self-directed. It's entirely focused on the other, the expert, the leader. You see it in politics. You see it in childcare, child rearing. It's really pervasive. And I love the Dorothy line. Like I was just thinking yesterday that like that's I've been thinking about it for a newsletter to write, and I was thinking it's so Disney-esque. This isn't even a new idea, right? Like this, it was in you all along is the stuff of some of our childhood stories.
Yeah, I'd say most. And usually, by the way, the parents are dead. So that the kids have to do things.
They just kill the parents off so that the kids
so that an adventure can begin. Wait, so when you were talking about we think of everything as being adult-led, I haven't even written this column yet because it upsets me so much I can't put pen to paper. But these are materials that are provided to preschools and I think regular schools. And here's how to help kids with hopping. Okay. Explain that when you hop on one foot, you spring off the floor on one foot and land on the same foot. Demonstrate and talk about the steps as you do them. Do you know any animals that hop? Can you hop like a bunny? They use 2 feet to hop, which I already think is so confusing. Didn't you just say you have to hop on one leg, and now you're talking about bunnies hopping on 2 legs? See how I keep this leg up while I push off the ground with my other foot. It's like, yeah, that's really how kids learn. It's like, give me a lot of words to process and demonstrate with an adult who can barely, jump off the ground. And then I'll learn to hop because it would never kick in. I mean, I think of this as like the apotheosis of what we're talking about, a real belief that kids are absolutely dumb stones with nothing going on unless you teach them, and B, back to this teacher model that they can only learn from an adult. How many kids have learned to hop from adults? I would say 0. Right? 0.
Surely.
And this same instruction sheet tells you how to teach kids to bounce. One lifts the ball off the pavement and then lets it go, and then if it bounces up high, that is a high bounce, and if it bounces low, that's a low bounce. And how to kick a ball, wedge the foot gently beneath the ball, between the ball and the surface. It's like, how did you get to the point where you think that this makes any sense and is helping anyone? I mean, it's a delusional, crazy document that is disseminated to all the adults who are, quote unquote, teaching our kids. How do you even write that column? That's my problem. Without going like, isn't this the dumbest thing? I'm just going to print the instructions and you sit here and shake your head. The end. Right?
And it also overrides the expertise of teachers who have spent a lot of time in the classroom and know perfectly well how kids actually learn. Right.
And it turns teaching into this total drag. Right? Yeah. I am opening my mouth so sound comes out in word form. Can you do that? Right?
Yeah. Well, and a lot of it, I think, is driven by this sort of like weird assessment culture. Like if you can't like assess this process, then it doesn't exist, or but I mean, I think about it, and we're reviewing our general education curriculum right now, and one of we have communication as one of the outcomes, learning outcomes. And
is this in college?
And I keep and I keep joking. Okay. I'm like, if you take a college class and it doesn't and you don't learn anything about communication, and I don't mean like principles of communication,
or standing on the podium,
if it's not asking you to practice communication in some way, shape, or form, then like what I can't think of a college class that wouldn't that wouldn't help students build that muscle. But we have to assess it because we have accreditors and we have the New York State Department of Education, and we have all of these people who insist that we have to write this down on a piece of paper, and then we have to include it in our student learning outcomes, in our course outlines, and then we have to add it to our syllabi. So yeah, I mean, like, my faculty have to participate in this assessment process, and syllabi get longer and longer every year because we are doing exactly this, right? First, you put one foot on the ground, and then you
you put the word at the top of the page. Then you take a space. It shouldn't be a giant space. It should just be a small enough space that you realize one word has ended and another word is about to begin. Yeah,
but faculty are burnt out for exactly the same reasons that preschool teachers are burnt out, for exactly the same reasons that parents are burnt out, which is that we've forgotten how humans learn, and we've taken all the joy out of it. And then we have I'll be very brief because I know we're running out of time, but we have there's this vertically integrated projects consortium that's about basically creating these multidisciplinary, multi-age groups of students who participate in a hands-on project, and the seniors help mentor the younger students and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, wow, we've recreated like how students should be learning, but we're like calling it innovation. Like, this is like a really innovative model. And I'm like, or we should have been doing this in higher education for the last 150 years or whatever. So I think we're getting a little better, but it's like in this really like, we're like rediscovering things in these sort of marginal ways. But I mean, that's partly why the work that you do is so important. The work that Let Grow does is so important, is bringing this back to educators and just reiterating that really profound truth that like
the profound truth
kids
is
will be
you
all right.
You got to trust everybody. You got to trust the teachers are teaching, right? Without this, second by second instruction. You have to trust the kids are curious and do want to engage, that they're not, they're just not that stupid and bored unless we make them stupid and bored, right? So if you trust and you step back, that's why it's when adults step back, kids step up. One of the things Peter Gray always says is that when adults and kids are together, the adults are the adults and the kids are the kids. It's only when the adults aren't there that the kids start becoming the adults. So we have to give them more opportunities to do that, to have the chance of like making things happen. And that's why when I did my TED Talk, the title of it is why you should spend less time with your kids. And it's not you should ignore them, you shouldn't feed them, you shouldn't care about them, they'll grow fine, leave them in the yard for a few years. But it does allow you to have your own life and them to have a little bit of life amongst other kids without you. And then, of course, there's still family life. But my friend Chris Byrne is the one who explained this to me. There used to be kid life, which was, bikes and candy and games. And there was adult life, which is so boring. It's politics and, who's having an operation. And then there's family life. And we've mashed them up because we think that any time that kids aren't with us, it's wasted or it's in danger or they're in danger. And now we just got to pull those apart again. And that's what Let Grow is trying to do.
Wow, that's really powerful. We'll link to your TED Talk, Lenore, because it was just such a good summary. I actually mentioned it to my 13-year-old. I said, he knew who you were, by the way. I got some cool points.
Whoa.
For having
he gets
somebody
cool points
on the podcast.
I like him. Yeah, right.
Yes. And I said, she just gave this TED Talk about spending less time with your kids. And he was like, yeah, that makes sense to me.
He's a 13-year-old boy. It makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Yeah. My 13-year-old daughter's like, why are you still here? And I'm like, right. I am.
Go do a podcast, Mom.
So in the last couple minutes, like if people want to implement the ideas you're talking about in their own communities, where would you suggest they start? Like,
great.
What resources, or like, is there a specific lever? Yeah.
There's a couple things. So, like I said, our programs for schools, all our stuff is free, but our programs for schools, you'll find at letgrow.org, letgrow, letgrow.org. So that you can find the Let Grow experience there and the Let Grow Play Club, and any school that wants it, they just press a button. And then the quote unquote payment is they talk to one of our school account managers for half an hour who walks them through the program. So it's actually even easier. And then if you just want to do stuff on your own, which is great, but there's always strength in numbers. But if you want to just like get this started already, it's going to take the school a while. we just published after the TED Talk something called 4 Weeks to a Let Grow Kid. And it's just lovely. It's really easy. It's really fun. Once again, free. And the first week is having kids start do things for themselves that we do for them that they could probably do. Get the stuff in your backpack or tie your shoes or make your lunch or whatever. And then the second week, I think it's get to know your neighborhood. And it's like wander around and go to the neighbors or go to the store or whatever. And then the third week is, I can't remember. I would do something with a friend, I guess, and so you start venturing further. And then the last week is start organizing some stuff that sounds fun, a picnic or an outing, a day, help plan a family weekend or whatever. And so by the end of just 4 weeks, with you and your child choosing which of these things, there's lists for each of the week. One of the best ideas is order French fries from a human for interacting with people week. So at the end of 4 weeks, you have a kid who's like making their lunch and walking to the bus stop and has plans for the weekend to visit a friend, and it's just normalizing, again, what we've been talking about before, the fact that your kids are competent, the fact that kids do want to be independent and they do want to spend some time with their friends without you always helping. And this helps you. It's just a simple roadblock, not a roadblock, a roadmap. And you don't have to do it yourself. Your kids can do it, siblings can do it together, friends can do it together, you and your friend, you each have 13-year-olds. If you live anywhere near each other, okay, let's have them do it. And, and you don't even have to use the exact ideas that are on our list. Those are just suggestions.
No, those are fantastic. Yeah. Thank you. Is there anything else you want listeners to know before we sign off? We'll have these resources and a ton more in the show notes, so we'll make sure all of that is ready for everyone. But is there anything else you would like to leave us with before?
Right. I guess I'm just going to reiterate that I feel, everyone thinks I'm the anti-helicopter parent person, and first of all, I am part helicopter on my mom's side, and secondly, it's this culture. It's a culture that is really forcing us and normalizing a level of, gently lift one foot off the ground while keeping the other foot firmly there. That's normalizing a very bizarre kabuki-like way of raising kids and teaching kids that will hopefully look really strange really soon. And now's the time to start rejecting it. But it's not you. Yes. It's the culture.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
So much, Lenore.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, Lenore. Take care.
You've been listening to We Made This Political with Laura Forcum and Lauren Hall. You can find us on Substack, Instagram, or LinkedIn. The podcast Substack is We Made This Political. Laura's Substack is How to Human, and Lauren's Substack is The Radical Moderate's Guide to Life. Subscribe and share if you like what you hear, and please also rate and review on your favorite podcast platform. That really, really helps other people find our work and means a lot to us too. Thanks for listening.